Okay, it's 2:30, so we can get started now. First of all, uh, thank you for joining us for our first live event. This is new technology, so we hope we don't have any issues, but we might, so please bear with us for this first one. The purpose of today's session is we want to be able to show users how to use Formula Builder. And for those who've never used Formula Builder before, this is absolutely within your reach. It may look a little intimidating for some. Others of you who are tuning in, who are maybe more experienced Formula Builder users, I hope you can pick up some new tips, tricks, things we do a little differently. Everybody has their own take on this, and we can all learn from each other. So this should be good for beginners to advanced. Everyone should get something out of this. So um, I know we have some users who may intuitively understand the market and have their own perspective about relationships between instruments, but maybe you've never given a thought to realizing your models because you assume that the programming was too difficult or expensive. Um, this is for you guys. We want you to start the new year determined to pick up our syntax, our way of CQG's model of coding strategies. And the topic today is Formula Builder, so you're welcome to ask anything in the chat, but we do hope you will stick to custom studies, custom strategies, anything like that. For other topics, we'll just direct you to one of our support channels, like you can give us a call, use live chat from within IC, or email. All of those work. We're going to have other live events in the future, so maybe down the line we'll do one on Spreader. I've got Kevin on with me today. He's sort of a CQG's resident Spreader expert, so I'm sure all of you guys trading spreads will look forward to that one. Maybe we could do another one a bit later using discussing the charting API. So Formula Builder is super powerful. It's really easy to use, but you can't just build anything in the world with Formula Builder. There is a limitation at some point, especially if you have a lot of recursive stuff in your strategies, or you're doing some sort of algorithmic problem solving, like using Excel solver or something like that. You're going to want to use the charting API to do those types of things, and then bring it in to IC. But for this episode, or this session, we're just going to be building studies in Formula Builder. To get warmed up, I'll just build a few studies that show some basic concepts of our study language, and I plan to go from easy to more sophisticated. If you have any questions along the way, just put them in the chat. And one fun thing we might do is, as I'm building a study, you might say, hey, what if you did this to it? Or what if we added, I see you're doing a moving average. Well, what if you looked at the offset, or the difference between the moving average and something else? We can do all those things on the fly. That's the purpose of this session. So that's it. So let's just get started. Let me chat. First of all, let me introduce Kevin. Kevin, are you on with me?
Indeed, I am. Thanks, Josh. My name's Kevin Falkman. I'm the product specialist at CQG that's worked with our CQG spreader pretty much since its inception in 2009. I'm going to be receiving some of the chats here as they come in and feeding them over to you, Josh, so that we have some interaction with the folks who are viewing.
Great, thanks. So first off, let's just do like some very basic Formula Builder concepts. So I'm going to start a new study name, and we'll just call it close -1, right? And then close Now in this one, what I want to do is just get the last period's close. And actually it's really simple. Just type in close here, and open brackets is the offset. And I can type in, get the 2 days ago, 3 days ago, 4 days ago. I'm just going to get the last period, so -1. I hit apply. When I right click on my chart, I'm going to add this study. This is a custom study. Usually when people start up CQG, I believe it defaults to the basic study category. So whenever you create a custom study, you want to make sure you come up here to find it, go to your custom studies category, and it's the one you just created should pop up at the top. So double click that. Oh. Here we go. So as you can see, in the lower left hand corner, 26.92 is the last period. So to check that, we'll go up here, last period, and then you can see in the lower left hand portion just above the study, you can see the close of last period was 92.25. And then the beauty of this is this shows the previous period going all the way back. So that curve, the study curve, is actually the history of the previous period. And that really comes in handy later when you want to do some more complicated things. But let's go back to Formula Builder. Now that was the close. What if we wanted like the high of the last period? It's just as easy. Change the close to the high, hit apply, and now you can see the high of the last period is 26.93. And if I go over a bit, oh, let's close this. Last period's close, or last period's high was 26.93. And that's it. So let's get rid of this one and go on to something maybe a little more complicated. Again, if you have any questions, just raise them in chat and we will address them directly. So remove that.
Hey Josh, one of the viewers is just mentioning that they cannot see the option window. So I'm not sure if that's
the option window?
Yeah.
I don't understand the option window. Could they clarify that?
Sure. We'll keep an eye on that for you. Thanks.
No problem. Okay. Actually, next study we want to do, let's just create a moving average. So CQG comes with a moving average. It's like the basic of all technical indicators, right? But I'll just show you how to create it from scratch, just to give you an idea of the concept of using Formula Builder. So we'll call this new moving average. And I've already done this example, so I already have that. Let me go down there. And start over. Okay, so moving average is usually use the close, but you could do a moving average on basically anything. But for this purpose, let's just do a simple moving average based on the close. Now, what is moving average? It's the sum of all of the closes over your moving average period divided by the number of periods, right? So we could do like close plus close offset 1, etc., 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 plus close offset 2, and then put all that in parentheses and divide it by 3 and get the 3-period moving average. But that's a pretty clumsy way to do it. There's a more elegant way to do this. What we'll do is we'll use the sum function, and I'm going to introduce using variables. So first, a equals. This is how you define variables in our formula builder, colon equal sign. To the left of that is your variable name. This can be, I believe the constraints are it can't start with a number, but other than that, there are very few constraints on variable names. You might not be able to do special characters either, but basically any string, no spaces, is a good variable name. So a equals close. So what I've done now is I've assigned the close to the letter A. Now for B, I'm going to use the sum function, and it wants, oh, this little at sign here in close, that means it's going to take the close of whatever is the charted instrument in your chart. So whatever chart you apply the study to, that at sign gets that symbol, right? So down here, I don't want the sum of the actual closes. I want this, well, I do actually, but I want the sum of A. And if I change this to high, I'm going to get the sum of the highs. If I change it to low, I'll get the sum of the lows. But I'm going to get right now the sum of the closes. Now, let's say we don't want 8 period, we want a 20 period, so I'm going to double click here, and it opens up setup study parameters. And let me know if this doesn't show up for you. It should.
Hey Josh, it's Kevin. Some of the sub windows, I believe, are not showing for our audience. So the original question was actually when you right-clicked on the chart, what exactly were you selecting? And I believe it's in the Add Study window. We just
right.
we don't see it out here in the public. So if you could just go sort of word for word and let folks know what you're doing. Thanks.
Sure. Hopefully you guys have CQG IC up and running while I'm doing this, but let me see here. If I right click on the chart, you won't see it because I can't get my video encoder to grab that, but that's where your right click menu pops up, and in the second section of that right click menu is Add Study at the top. So another way to do it is hit Control Alt D, and that will bring up the Add Study menu. Yeah, I apologize, I can't show that, but hopefully you get it. So that's how I add studies, is I right click on a chart, click Add Study, and then I find these the study I need. In the future, I'll try and figure out a better way to screen share, like maybe my whole screen rather than just grabbing individual windows. So getting back to the moving average, A equals the close, B is going to be the sum of the close, and we change the number of closes we're summing to 20, and then we just need to do B divided by 20, right? Apply that. Now I'm going to right click here. You won't see it, but double click on my new moving average, and there we have it. So let's test it. Let's put in CQG's moving average and go to basic studies. Here it is. Modify this to 20. Okay, so now we have CQG's moving average and my moving average. Mine, one obvious problem is it's not overlaid, so let's get rid of it. Go back to the study formula builder window and click on the overlay button. I usually forget to do that. Okay, I'll close that. This is CQG's moving average. Now let's add mine. It should be the same. doesn't look the same, but let's go back into modify. So you probably don't see this either, but when you right click on a study, it pulls up setup study parameters. And what I'm modifying now is I'm changing the display, the share scale from auto to on. So, and I'm going to change the color to red, and I'm going to make the weight of the line 2, which is bigger than usual. Hit apply. Now you can see it's tracking the CQG's moving average perfectly. So if I click this, that's that. One thing you can't do at this point is change the period. So my moving average sort of stinks compared to CQG's, so let's remove it. If I right click and modify and do the setup study parameters, I can change the moving average to, let's just say 50. Okay, it's that easy. With mine, you can't do that because I haven't added any parameters to my study, but we can add studies. We can add parameters, so let's do that now. Right now, what can we add parameters to? So in the sum, 20, and in the final calculation of the moving average, we have 20. So let's make that a parameter. What you do is you go to the parameters button. It's called parm. Totally understandable if you've missed that. And let's just call it period. And we'll make the default value 20. Now I come into setup study parameters. What I do is I double click on this function and it brings up my parameters. Then in the period, Kevin, do you know if they can see this?
To the best of my knowledge, everybody's able to see things so far.
Okay. So you right click here and you can find the parameter you just made. Hit OK, hit OK, and that changes the period now to that parameter. So this is important when you apply the study to the chart and you right click to modify it, that period parameter exposes itself and you can change it there. Now also I want to change this 20. I could type in period, that works, or I could come over to the toolbox down here and my parameters are listed here. I could just insert that.
So Josh, it's almost like you're creating your own variable, right? And then you can utilize that within this definition, correct?
Exactly.
And then you could also use that in other definitions as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. So now I've added the study. I can modify it, and you just have to trust me. The period exposes itself, and I'll change it to 50, hit OK, and now you can see that it's moved. It's changed.
Josh, if you could, as you right-click and get into those sub-menus and some of those dialog windows, just explain a little bit better as folks aren't able to see those menus as you right-click.
Sure. Let me actually see if I can capture my whole screen. Give me 1 second. Probably just went blank. I'll be right back up, I promise. Let's see here. No, I'm sorry. I can't figure it out on the fly. Sorry about that. But if you have a CQG up and running and you were to right click on a study, any study, what comes up is a menu if you right-click on a study, what comes up is the study name at the top and the curve, the exact curve in that study that you've right-clicked on. So some, like a moving average cross or uh, some other studies, they have like multiple curves, right? Or Ichimoku has 5 curves. So if you right-click on any one specific curve, that you'll get the modification context menu for that one curve. So I only have one in this case, and so it says new moving average dot C1 because that's the default name of the first curve, and it has the parameter listed as 50. Then below that, I can choose add study on this study. So I can actually put a moving average on top of the moving average I've already placed there. That would sort of a second order moving average. Then modify new moving average formula. So that would take me directly to formula builder. I could add conditions for marking the new moving average. So um, that brings in the conditions context of the formula builder. I can modify the new moving average, and that's the one I click on when I want to change the parameters or anything like that. It says modify whatever study name you've got. In my case, it's new moving average. Then modify all study parameters. So if I had 6 or 7 different studies on my page, I could click modify all study parameters, and a huge setup study parameters window would appear, and I could adjust everything, at once. It's a little cluttered, so I like to do them independently when that's the case. And then I can change the color. I could add a study alert on the new moving average so that if it gets above a certain level or it gets down to a certain level, it will notify me an alert, or I could place a trade based on that. A really cool thing is show new moving average on trading interface. So any custom study you design, you can have that show up on your DOM ticket, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but it's really cool. And then we can hide the new moving average label on the scale. So over on the right hand side, you can see the price of the new moving average is there. I could hide that if I wanted to. And that's it. And then remove new moving average at the bottom. So if we want to get rid of it, that's what that is. So that's it for the new moving average study. Let's see. We looked at parameters. We've looked at offsets. If no one has a study they want me to build right now, if we're not ready at that stage, then I can go on to working with a moving average in like more ways. Like let's show the close, the difference between the close and the moving average, right? So how far away is the market right now from its moving average? That's a pretty interesting one. And once you've got those two things, then I think that opens up pretty much like a whole universe of possibilities for people who haven't been familiar with this before. So let's take a look. And Kevin, let me know if someone has something specific they want us to build in the meantime.
I think everybody is very focused on your presentation so far, and I don't have any other questions yet, but I'll let you know.
So the we can work with this. And here's one quirk in CQG. Corn is the symbol C in a lot of, can be the symbol C. And what happens is sometimes CQG confuses the variable C with the symbol for corn. So what we always do is when we get to the C variable, we call it C1. And that avoids that confusion. And then if you want to be, consistent about it, you make everything A1, B1, C1. And then sometimes I'll have a study with maybe 15 variables in it, right? And A1 through, K1 or whatever. And I realize I need another step in there. You know, the way I like, the way I think through a program. I'm not sure if there's any necessity to have things ordered any certain way, but sometimes I'll need like something between B1 and C1, so I'll go back up and I'll create a B2. So this is a pretty handy way to organize your variables like this. But let's move on. So now we've got the moving average is C1, and I'm going to call this moving average up here. So I just changed the curve name from C1 to moving average. And let's see what happened here. Oh, I think I know what happened. Give me 1 second. Because I didn't change the B to B1, it screwed up my study. So change that to B1. That looks better. Also, custom studies like to auto format themselves or auto scale themselves to the full size of your chart window, independent of what's actually charted. So I'm right clicking on this, and I'm clicking in the display area, and I'm making sure the share scale is on, and then I hit OK. And you can see that just jumped down. It was on auto, but I just turned the share scale to on. So now we know this moving average line is sharing the scale with the underlying chart price. That one will can get tricky. So you'll be beating your head against the wall for a while until you figure out, oh, I just need to change the share scale. So let's go back. And I'm going to copy this curve and put a new curve in there. So let's just copy it because I want to use the same code. We're going to call this close diff. Right? And when I created that, you can see it's just a copy of the first curve, but since it auto defaults to auto share scale, it's screwed up on the chart. So now let's we'll leave it alone for now, unless it's bothering someone. You can chat that. You want to do D1 equals close minus C1. Okay, and this should be weird. Let's see what happened here. I got an error. Try it again. Not enabled for D1. Oh, this is interesting. I believe I'm getting an error at the top of my screen that says not enabled for D1. I don't know if you guys can see that, or maybe you saw part of a yellow bar at the top. I believe that means that we have a symbol D1. Can't say for sure, so let's just try D. Not enabled for D. That's interesting. Let's call it diff. Not found diff. Oh, apologies. Here's the problem. I didn't have the equal sign. So let's go back. I think I can use D1. Working formula builder is just a constant process of debugging, right? I make more than my fair share of mistakes. So this is the difference. You look at the value, right? It has no business being on the same chart area as the underlying chart. So what I propose we do is let's copy this and delete it. Okay, and we'll create a new study. We'll call it new moving average diff. Okay. Now I'm just going to paste this in. Now you'd think, okay, perfect. We've pasted this in, everything should work great, right? Not necessarily. I haven't created the parameter that we're using in here yet. So I've got to come up here to parameters, give it the period, 20. So now we've got a new study. Alternatively to this, I could have study diff. I could have just gone now, because I created the new moving average, it now exists in my list of studies in my toolbox. So I can come down here, find new moving average here, right? Insert it, and let's make that variable 1. By the way, all study, all lines of code in your study need to end with a semicolon. I didn't mention that before. So variables are colon equals, and new lines are colons. So we've got that. We double click on this, and it's going to bring up my period, and I've changed it to period. So let's double check here. Yep, we're ready to go there. So now we're just, instead of using, all of this code to create the moving average again, and use the close minus that code, you just come up here. Now it could be close minus A1. It's the same thing. Right? So we're not going to overlay this because we don't want it on top of our chart because it doesn't belong in the same scale. There's sometimes when you would put like non-same scale stuff on the same chart, but this isn't one of them, I don't think. So you just have to trust me. I'm adding the study, and here it is. So there's a little weirdness in the way CQG represents formulas, formula values on the price scale. So the difference here is 2693 basically, and 2688. So that's or 8.5. So that's like 3.5, right? Oh man, yeah, it's less than 4. So 88 to 92 would be 4. It's somewhat less than that. So there we have it down here, 32. And what you can't tell is it's showing both studies down here. So let me close the chart window, and hopefully you can see. Oh no, my arm is behind it. Computer's behind it too. There, 202.5. That's what the value was at this line here. So go back. So down here, you can see negative 32. That's where it is. And that's based on the current bid or offer, however you have CQG configured to calculate that for yourself. It's not a big issue for this case. So let's see. Let's go back to Formula Builder and just get rid of the first curve, and we're just left with this one. So now we're using the new moving average study in this new study, just referencing it, and then we're taking the close, wherever the close happens to be, minus that. And there we go. So this is kind of erratic, right? Because it matches sort of the volatility of the underlying price when you're comparing it against this, long moving average. So sometimes it's nice to take a moving average of the close minus the moving average, in which case you can just, if I right click on this, I can add a study on this, and you know what, I'm going to see if I can, there. I've added my new moving average on top of the moving average difference study. So it kind of takes the volatility out, and I'm going to modify it and make the parameter like 9. There's pretty good. Gives you a good idea of where the market's been, like relative. I don't know. If you get into like the study of moving averages, it's a pretty serious black hole from which you might never escape. So I'm warning you now.
So essentially what you've done is you created your own custom study, but then you've overlaid it with another study, which is going to smooth that out a little bit and show the moving average of your study, correct?
Yeah, so I just did this because I could, but the study difference study, right? What that is or actually the moving average study just calculates the moving average. It's this one up here. And then the study difference is the close minus that, right? So then because it's the close minus that, you still get all the volatility of, every bar's movement. So we want to kind of smooth that out. So what I did was I used my own new moving average study again on top of the close minus the moving average, which is the study difference. So it's sort of one of those infinite mirror type of things. But yeah. Okay. I think we've beat this horse enough. Let's move everything and move on to something else. Unless people have a fascinating new study idea they want us to build, we're ready for that.
Yeah, if there are any questions, feel free to enter the questions into the live chat, and we'll get those over to Josh so Josh can address the questions.
Okay. So one of the things I like to do when I'm creating studies is if it's a really complicated study that needs like multiple steps, one technique I use is I'll create a new study just to sort of output the value of that one step. And let me see if I can find a good study to demonstrate that on. Let's see. Okay. I don't know why these are hidden. So, bear with me, I'm not happy with any of these, sorry. Okay, this is a good one. So what we've done here, let me just read through it. I forget what this study is actually doing, but we start with the close. We make a moving average. Looks familiar. Um, and then we multiply. This mult has to be a parameter. And you can see on the left our list of parameters in our toolbox. So that's a parameter times the standard deviation. That's a CQG function. Oh, by the way, all the functions that you can use, like I used some earlier, they're under a function tab in the toolbox. So this is a really powerful set of functions you can use. This one is standard deviation. It looks like this. And I'm multiplying .6 times standard deviation. So, and then I'm taking the average true range of today, period of 5 is my default, and then I'm adding the moving average plus standard deviation plus the average true range. So whether or not this is a credible study that has any meaning whatsoever, it's a good one for us to sort of use it to show how I like to debug things. So we might get to this. Moving average is relatively straightforward. If we go up to parameters, periods 20, right? The moving average isn't going to be significantly far away from the last close, right? So if we get something wildly different than what we see on the chart, then we know that formula is wrong. But for this parameter times standard deviation with another parameter, who knows? So we want to just track that and look at it. So I will create a new curve. So we'll just call it debug D. And I forgot to copy that, so I'm going to go back to C1. It should probably throw me an error. It did, because it's saying error found in expression, empty or unconnected expression. Do you wish to fix the expression before continuing? You can click no, I don't want to fix it. Okay. Now let's add the study, by the way. I have the study as overlaid, but I'm going to change it so that it's not overlaid, because this D is going to be not to scale for sure. I don't think. Okay, so let's add it. Here we go. Now, ATR plus debug D. This is the curve we are showing, right? And as you can see, it's just a nominal amount we're going to add to the closing price. The ATR plus looks like the actual closer to the closing price. That's because, well, it's the moving average plus some stuff. And part of that stuff is D, which is a multiplier times standard deviation of the charted symbol and over a certain number of periods, in this case 5. So, and the average true range obviously is the average true range over, average true range is 5. The standard deviation, we're using 20 periods, and we're multiplying it times 2.6. One thing you might have just noticed is the type. So when you create a new parameter, you also can create the type for it. So if I change this to integer, I would be unable to type in 2.6. So in order to type with decimal precision has to be float. You're also allowed to create Boolean date time inputs. So that's that. Now, let's say you wanted to test a condition, right? Like, let's take a look here. Is there anything like pseudo meaningful about this? Sorta. It kind of looks like, no, take that back. Nothing really. So, what can we do with this? I often use studies to create signals for telling me like buy or sell conditions. So let's find a study that's doing that. Give me 1 second. Oh, here's a good one. Okay, move this. And I seem to remember this study is terrible, but it's a good example. So the output of this study is a signal, right? So let's go back, squeeze up the chart here, and usually it's pretty meaningless. Every time you get one signal, you get another. This one was not great. Yeah, whatever. The important thing I want you guys to see is the fact that it's pretty good in visual aid for you to sort of keep track of when certain conditions are true. You can also add conditions using CQG conditions, and that will be another session, right? But you can create your conditions here. I like to do them in custom studies just because I incorporate them like really easily with other studies. So I remove them, I add them. Just for me, it seems easiest to do, to set them up right in the custom study tab. So what this is doing is it's taking a look at a couple moving linear regression lines, and I've set parameters for those. And then the close crosses below this moving linear regression, and the short one is, well, we're calculating the short minus the long, and then we are calculating the number of bars since this condition is true, and this condition is the short crossed above the long, and it's only looking at the last 400 bars for that. Then it's also, we're getting the channel high of that number, E. And then set reset is when B crosses above A, we want to trigger, we want 1 to go back to 0, so we want this to be 0, and then blah, blah, blah. So this is really sort of like tricky to suss out, right? But what we can do is, let's just copy it. Call it debug cell. Okay, now I'm going to comment out everything. So none of this will have any effect anymore because I put this /* sign here, and that means tell CQG to disregard all of this code. The reason I did that is because we've already got this code on the cell here, right? I just want to reference this to show you how to take a look at one of these lines, and so that we can look at them independently. So actually, Let's look at the bar since line, E, right? So I'm going to change the, where we stop debugging there, or actually, scratch out, where we start the debugging, it's going to be there. We get rid of this. So at this point, now we have access to all of this code. You can see it's no longer highlighted in green. So now I can just type down here E, and now it's going to grab E. Or I could type in D, which give me D. I suppose I could have done that by just removing the -1 times R, but sometimes I do it this way. So we hit apply, and now we can see the bar sense when the short moving linear regression line crossed above the long, right? And if we go down here, starts, keeps starting back at 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now we know that this one is acting correctly. We know this is working properly because that's what you would expect to see on a crossover like that. That's constantly resetting itself. But what about that set reset business? Let's just to refresh my own memory. Let's look at that. So let me get rid of that. Get rid of that. And actually, I'm just going to comment out the last line. So let's look at F. As you can see, it doesn't matter if I have an extra like empty space here. It just ignores that. Okay, so F is the channel high of E. So, oh, that's what's happening. So every time the short one moves above the long one, right, it starts counting how long ago that happened. And with this channel high in F, I'm trying to track what was the longest duration of that happening, right? So every time it happens again, it starts over from 0, right? So for some reason, I want the channel high of that number that constantly resets every time it crosses above again. Now, let's go see what E looks like. E, oh, not E, I'm sorry. G. Okay. So now it's set resetting from 0 to 1, but you know what? I forgot. I bet it has something to do with E, or rather C1, or no, E. So let's also copy this again. Provide a name. Just call it debug. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so as you can see, I don't know why it didn't happen here, but every time the moving average crosses over from the short crosses above the long, it resets, and it stays as a 1. When it stops doing that, oh, and then C1, when the close crosses below A, it comes, that's when it's finished. So let's also add debug C. Oh, C1 in it. Didn't mean to close that. Okay, so this is getting sort of messy. Now, another technique in debugging is let's change these line colors. So I don't think you can see my right-click menu, but I've clicked on this line and I'm going to modify this to be let's make it red. Okay, so I've changed the set reset line to red. Now this one is our bar since line, so let's change that to, I don't know, greenish. Okay, and then debug C. Let's change that to like purple. Alright, so now we can see exactly what could be triggering these things. So on this line, obviously the short moving lead regression crossed above the long, and actually, why don't we put those up here? And this is exactly how I debug as I'm creating studies. I like to break them down like into their individual parts. And, I forgot what our two values were, so let's go back and go to parameters. Short's 21, long is 60. Okay, so we'll go back in here. Oh, short's 21. I'll change this one to 60, and that 61 will make a different color, make it red. Here we go. So now you can see every time the short one moves above the long one, it resets the counter. So it doesn't reset when it's crossing down, but when it crosses back up, it resets. So we'll go back, see a couple more instances. You know, crossed above here, so it resets to 0, starts counting, and then it's going to cross above here, reset, starts counting. This is a long one. That's how it goes. So this is the only way I could work with creating custom indicators. Like, I have to see things visually, and I think you know, Formula Builder just offers like a really cool way to visualize this as you're doing it. So now the set reset, I still haven't determined C. Oh, no, here it is. So when this triggers, this comes down to 0. So C is the trigger for the set reset. It crosses above, you get a 1 as soon as there's C, whatever C is again. C1 is closing below, the close closes below the long one. So as you can see, here's the long moving average, and here's the close crossing below it. So we can go back. It happens here, pops up, closes below it again. Oh, technically it thinks that this line sort of broke through, even though it's just barely. So this next one, it's saying it closed below it, and then it doesn't happen again until you get over here. So as you can see, that's how that's working. So Again, I wouldn't say this study is valid for trading or any other reason, but hopefully it was helpful in explaining um, how I go about debugging these studies. Um, I think it's really helpful. So next, I'd like to go into um, I don't know if anyone would ever do this for any reason, but um, let's say you've got two moving linear regression lines like this, a long one and a short one, and maybe you just want the average between the two. I don't know if you could get that by just, averaging the period and asking for the moving linear regression of that period. I somehow doubt it. But so let's create a study where we just take two things on a chart um, and average them together. So what we'll do is we'll create a new study and we'll call it MLR averages. Okay. Now we come over to the toolbox and we need to get the moving linear regression study. I think I have built my own moving linear regression in Formula Builder, but it was needlessly painful. We've got one here. So it's not in the function category, it's in studies. And let's go down to moving linear regression. I don't see it. It's because it's spelled out. Here it is, moving linear regression. This study includes a lot of functionality. You could ask for like a top envelope. TE means top envelope, BE bottom envelope, and we don't want that. We want just the actual line itself. So let's add that. We'll just insert it. Oh, and we'll assign it to a variable. Right? Have to end it with a semicolon and B1. Let's add it again. And yep. Semicolon. And let's give these parameters short. 1, long, 60. Now, in the other study, I used MLR long and MLR short. That's because I was using periods with other built-in studies, so I didn't want to confuse what parameter was what. So if you're only using one parameter and it's going to be a period, then you can just go ahead and say period. But if you're using a moving average and moving linear regression and a sum and something else, then you want to be a little bit more descriptive probably in your parameters, or else you'll forget which is setting which, especially when you're in a chart and modifying a study. It gets tricky. So here we're going to make this one short. So again, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm double clicking on the function MLR, and it's opening up the setup study parameters. And under period, I'm just right clicking where it says 21 and choosing from the parameters that I had created and putting that in long. So now C1 I'm going to make equal A1 plus B1, and then C1 divided by 2, and that will get us the average. So we can overlay this. And I need to change to custom studies. So here it is. I'm going to make it a black line and know you can't see this, but I need to set the auto scale, share scale to on. And there we go. So that's how you can take two existing studies and work with them and get a third a third curve. In this case, it's the average of these two moving averages. Okay. So that's it. If nobody has any studies they want me to build, then we can end this here. Again, we're happy to, if you want to call us up or send us an email with something you're having trouble with, we're happy to help. Everyone, all the product specialists at CQG love helping customers build their studies and get up to speed on what they need. Like if you never want to get into Formula Builder, I think it's a mistake because it's not that difficult. You can do it, and we'll help you as much help as you need to get up and running. But if you just don't have time and you just want something like that in your mind should be super simple, then definitely call us because we can probably help you out. Kevin?
Josh, that was awesome. Thank you very much. Nice work. I don't have any questions coming in right at this time, but thank you guys for joining this session. It was our first session, and I just wanted to thank Josh and let him know he did a really great job.
Thanks. Thanks, guys. Till next time.